They say that money isn't everything, happiness is. But if you're going to say that so confidently, you better have a lot of it. Humans have been trading since the beginning of time, but thanks to advances in medicine and globalization allowing for larger, more stable incomes, we are living longer. And so we've started saving for the future and making sure we're secure. It's important to save and invest. They should teach us about it in schools because fully grown adults are struggling to manage money. Thankfully, the internet is here to rescue us again. With a lot of information at our fingertips and various apps to assist us, learning to navigate your finances is now easier. But we need to make sure these services aren't just available to the rich, but also available to the next 500 million.
The next 500 million, or the NHB, are the core of this podcast. They represent the second big wave of internet users in India, hence the term next. We define them as the cohort of 500 million first-time internet users that have come online via their mobile phones in 5 years. From a demographic standpoint, they are mainly from the bottom 60% of India's income distribution. They are owners of small businesses like beauty salons and kirana shops, and also blue-collar workers, domestic workers, security guards, etc. They are building a greater comfort with tech and represent the hustle and ambition of an aspiring India. I'm Utsav, an ex-engineer, market researcher, traveler, and podcaster.
And I'm Nivedita, an ex-engineer, comedian, and writer. And you're listening to Smartphone Nation, how the next 500 million are shaping their future online. In today's episode, we tell you how smartphones have allowed easier access to formal savings and wealth creation products.
So, what is the most unique way of saving money you have heard?
You know that people put money in containers that they store rice and pulses in, right? So that no one steals it. My grandparents used to do that. What have you heard?
I wish I did not have to give you a dark one, but here we go. This is a story my mother narrated from her time growing up in Dehradun. My maternal grandfather had a family friend who had migrated from Pakistan post the partition in 1947. Having come with absolutely nothing on him, he took up shelter in a house which was vacated by another family which crossed over to Pakistan. Many years later, he decided to renovate the house and demolish the wall. Out came a brick made of gold. Apparently, the family that crossed over had saved all their money in the form of gold, converted it into a brick, and put it in the wall. They hoped that when everything settled down, they would come back. Alas, that never happened. And the family friend came to be known as Ito Wale Babaji, or the man with the gold bricks.
Wow, I was so not prepared to hear this story. It's fascinating but tragic at the same time.
It is. And by no means is this story unique. There are many such stories from the time of partition. However, since then we have gone through economic liberalization and transformed into an open market economy. Our per capita incomes have gone up. India's savings rate is one of the highest in the world. In 2021, the domestic savings rate was 29.3%, which was higher than the global average of 26.9%.
But isn't most of that in gold and real estate? Real estate especially, since it's so hard to liquidate over a short period of time.
That's true, actually. As per the RBI, 77% of Indian households hold their assets in real estate. In fact, this is a habit which has been passed down generations. Our parents' generation grew up in the 60s and 70s, when they had limited means to save their money, and economic mobility was hard to come by. There were even fewer avenues to spend the money. So, it was maybe okay to invest in real estate. It's certainly not the case for us.
I'd agree. In fact, I'd say we are probably flooded with too many options. Right from good old fixed deposits and national savings certificates, we now have RBI gold bonds, index funds, and the latest kid on the block, cryptocurrencies.
Indeed. In fact, in behavioral sciences, this is known as the choice paradox. The situation when there is an abundance of choice, instead of allowing us to make a better choice, ends up putting us in a situation where we find it too hard to make a choice. Here's Teresa Matthew, an investor from Omidyar Network India, an impact investment firm with a focus on the next 500 million, talking about that.
The natural incentive of the business is to serve the top end of the market. And Scripbox took this very different approach of making affordable long-term savings products accessible to the common investor, and through AI-based technology thereby reducing complexity of decisions. I think decision fatigue is one of the biggest barriers to financial health, right? I mean, customers find it very difficult to choose from hundreds of mutual funds, thousands of listed stocks, etc. And Scriptbox has taken that technology-based approach to reduce the complexity of the investing process, thereby improving their trust, and again, getting the common investor into a regular saving and investing habit.
Maybe that is why most people shy away from newer forms of investments, even those that are heavily regulated by SEBI and RBI. I know I have had my fair share of doubts about what best to do with my money.
Oh, you're not alone. I, along with millions of Indians, are with you on this. Most of us simply lack the understanding and avenues to make prudent financial decisions. But this is changing. Technology is enabling easier access to both expertise and transparency in investing.
It's actually something similar which led Atul Shinghal to start Scriptbox. It's a digital wealth management company which aims to provide access to affordable long-term financial savings products to the mass market consumers who are not addressed by wealth management firms and distributors. Atul was having a conversation with his parents about investing a sum of 1 lakh, and both of them had different people they wanted to hand over their money to. Atul came from a background of financial asset management, so decided to dig deeper. He figured that at least one of the people his parents wanted to give the money to was someone who would recommend investment products based on wherever he made the most commission.
I guess that's why they say you should only take financial advice from a fee-based financial planner, so that they recommend investment products based on your life goals and not what makes them the most money.
That's right. But do you even know how many SEBI-registered investment advisors there are in this country?
A few lakhs, I reckon.
Nope, just about 1,300. India has one investment advisor per 76,510 investors.
And that's only current investors. What about those who are going to start their investment journeys? They would number into millions.
I think 76,000 people is already too many for one person to handle. There clearly aren't enough investment advisors, and it's humanly impossible for these investors to pay attention to even 1,000 people, let alone 76,000. And when it comes to Indian saving and investing, it's a lot more nuanced in itself. Here is Atul Shinghal, founder and CEO of Scriptbox, talking about that.
I think there's a more fundamental question around, you said Indians save well or Indians have had a savings culture, but the saving has been always for a rainy day, not for a better outcome or a better life. So the principle, fundamental, how people saved, and I think look at our parents, we talked about them, it was all about saving for a rainy day. So safety, whether it's under the mattress, whether it's in a fixed deposit, was always the basic, and hence LIC, like the Life Insurance Corporation, is such a large money manager, asset manager, because people just felt safe, right, in that. And I think that was fundamentally flawed, right, because people were not saving for a better life or saving for a better outcome.
I'd agree that Gen Z is definitely more prudent than us millennials. But there is a problem. There is just too much focus on trading, short-term returns, best-performing stocks, etc. And not to forget finfluencers, who have become so popular that people treat their advice as gospel truth. Forget bankers and management consultants dishing out advice. Even fitness and beauty influencers are doling out advice without any checks.
That indeed is a problem. And we all know that only long-term investing gives reliable returns, which can build wealth.
Atul was talking about the same thing, goal-based investing, and how that plays out in India. Here's Atul.
So we clearly see that, money is fungible at a certain level, right? So while we like the jam jars for separate goals, what we do see is that people plan around goals, people invest generally. So what that means is that I'll say, okay, I need 2 crores for my children's education, or say 50 lakhs for my children's education. I need about 2.5 crores, whatever the number is for my house, and say another 2-3 crores or whatever for my retirement. But I'll put all of this get together and I need 5 crores to be done, and I'll start at 50,000 rupees. So what we are trying to, obviously human minds work very differently. So we give people multiple guided paths to get to the same, many paths to God, right? So we give people multiple paths. Some people like to straight and narrow, keep these jam jars very separate. But just how much you need for retirement, answering that question is equally important. also removing the fear, right? If I tell you today that, hey, you need 10 crores when you retire 20 years from now, and we keep telling people that this myth that I'll retire at 40, we should be break very, very quickly. Today, people are going to live to 90, 95. I mean, our parents are living to 80, 82, 85. I'm hoping that it gets longer. So you can't hope to work for 20 years between 20 and 40 and then use that money for 50 more years. It doesn't work. You just need to plan better. Now, so from that perspective, taking the fear away from that quantum, right? Even if I come to you with a number which is say that you're going to need to get to 10 crores because to afford a lifestyle 30 years from now, hey, just investing 50,000 rupees a month, you'll get there. It's about start early, like you said, stay invested, keep investing. And I mean, I've lost all my hair just repeating these three things. Start early, stay invested, keep investing.
Scriptbox solves this problem in two key ways. They simplify investing into a few pieces, like short-term goals and long-term goals.
Yeah, but you know what feels more real to me than mere investment outlooks like short-term and long-term goals? Plans like child education and retire confident. The latter in particular makes intuitive sense to me. It's a lot easier to understand, and I feel like I can commit to it on the basis of my risk appetite. But how do I know if I'm getting good returns on my investments? And when should I be switching so that I hit my goals?
This is exactly what users like Scriptbox for. We spoke to Ekta Chavriya, who lives in Bangalore. She too struggled with how best to invest her money. Here is Ekta talking about why she chose Scriptbox.
The kind of interest levels I hold and even the mental bandwidth that I have, I don't fall in the category of people who will extensively go out of their way and research where do they need to invest their money in, what are the kind of mutual funds that need to be looked into. So Scriptbox just makes that easier for me. I just put in my basic financial information and it suggests a whole bunch of investment plans that would be useful for me. And that's, I think, one of the favorite parts I like about Scriptbox is it gives me a diversity of options on where can I invest my money, whether it should be short-term investments, whether it should be long-term investments. They also have something called the emergency fund, which is very handy where I can just invest and then, withdraw cash with just one click whenever I need. And they also have something called the tax saving investment plan where they suggest themselves what kind of investments will help me save tax on my salary. So these kind of plans really, really make it very, very easy for me to understand how I can grow my money. Not only that, even when I'm choosing mutual fund plans for short-term, long-term investments, emergency funds, I don't have to research which are the mutual funds that I should invest in because they have an option where they show recommendations themselves, including the kind of potential returns I can expect on this investment. So again, the whole process, the whole method of going about investing money is made very, very simple and user-friendly, even for amateurs like me who are not holding enough knowledge to sort of make the right kind of investment calls.
I agree with her. Unless you really understand financial markets, investing in the right places is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, I can confirm that I was never sure how to invest my money, and it's scary when you first begin to earn because you always think you'll make the wrong choice.
Scriptbox understands this and conducts automated portfolio reviews and suggests adding or removing funds. You are free to agree or disregard the investment advice, thereby putting the choice right back in your hands.
So it's not just a platform to buy and sell, but a digital wealth manager.
I think that describes it pretty well.
I mean, you and I could think of retire confident, but for the large number of people who work in India's informal sector, the goals, needs, and wants are very different. How is the smartphone helping them exactly?
We will get to that right after this short break. Welcome back to Smartphone Nation. 90% of Indians work in India's informal sector, and 85% of those are self-employed. So we are talking about 800 million people here who contribute to over 50% of India's GDP. The sheer scale of India's next half billion makes it important to consider savings and wealth solutions for them.
We've already taken the first steps in this regard. As of August 2022, about 46 crore Jan Dhan accounts have been opened, with 56% of account holders being women and 67% of accounts in rural and semi-urban areas. While having an account helps save, it does not provide two critical services: growing the money saved and access to credit.
It's precisely this problem that intrigued Sucharita Mukherjee and Puneet Gupta, the founders of Kaleidofin, along with Natasha Jethanandani, the Chief Technology Officer. Natasha came from a background of understanding software and data at some of the largest tech companies in the world. And once she returned to India, she saw firsthand the transformative power of mobile internet. So, quiz time. As of 2022, there are about 360 million internet users in urban India. How many do you reckon are internet users in rural India?
Say about 200 million?
Almost 400 million.
What? Rural India has more internet users than urban India?
Yep. It's a silent revolution which most of us urban Indians seem to have missed.
But not Natasha, I guess. She joined Kaleidofin as the CTO. Kaleidofin is a wealth tech platform that advises NHB customers with the right financial product as per their goals.
That sounds like just about any other fintech. What makes them different?
Their customer base, because most of them are not part of the formal financial system and pretty much none of them have credit histories. They may not even have regular weekly or monthly incomes. But that's not all. I will let Natasha fill us in on the nuances.
Let's start with a few, right? I think access to any kind of savings solutions is just really not present, right? This demographic has just very, very few savings options at all. We realize that very often many of the customers we're working with, we're the first savings product that they really have access to, right? So they have access to bank accounts and they've opened them and there's great numbers on that front. But when you look at the usage of those bank accounts, it's really low. And that is very often due to the distances, for example, that people have to travel to the closest bank branch or to even the closest ATM. Makes it really challenging. I think there are just a ton of unspoken of fees that come up, charges that come up that prevent people from comfortably using either accounts or other products like fixed deposits, recurring deposits. And so just it's severely under-penetrated. And because their capability of savings is relatively low, right? So the amounts that they might save in a recurring fashion are very low. And so many financial providers, therefore, don't go out and really, work with these customers because the margins are very low, right? Also. So I think it's a real combination of lack of access from the customer end and also a lack of financial providers going out and, trying to reach this segment. And I would say if you look at the other side, right, which is access to credit, that is equally problematic. I think the latest global Findex report from the World Bank, right, really showed how financial resilience really has taken a hit, right? Almost, I think 70% of Indians responded in that survey saying that they would have a very difficult time accessing emergency funds, right?
She is right about that. Almost 63% of all medical expenditure in the country is spent out of pocket, the highest in the world, which means that many need to access emergency funds in case of a health emergency and may not have any access to such funds.
And it's not just about emergencies. Many of them are what we call nano entrepreneurs, people who need microloans, sometimes as few as a few thousand rupees. But accessing that is not easy. Here is Natasha again explaining why.
There's just a massive unmet credit demand. And, the reason for that is very often that the larger banking providers rely on credit scores. And credit scores inherently are less available for this customer. Even when they are available, they tend to always be in the lower range because these are non-salaried people, they are self-employed. Many of them are not tax-paying, not because they don't want to be, but because they don't fall in those brackets. They are in the lower income segments. And all of this makes it very hard for them to access credit of the right type, of the right products.
So how does Kaleidofin solve for this? I imagine they too would not want to lend without the comfort of a credit score. Also, many of the needs of the NHB would be immediate, and they wouldn't have the time to go through formal channels.
Oh, and there's more. It would require them to take a day off to figure out financial solutions, which means that they would lose a day's wage. There is also a lack of trust in formal institutions because almost no one they know may have used them. since people from the NHB usually purchase gold or invest in chit funds.
You're just piling on the problems. What exactly is Kaleidofin doing to solve this?
So, the approach customers take has a similar starting point to those who use Scripbox. It's all goal-based investing, just that the goals for the NHB could look significantly different. They may be a combination of smaller goals, like sending a child to a private school, or larger ones, like a daughter's wedding. And to determine the creditworthiness needed for these goals, Kaleidofin has taken a unique approach. Here's Natasha again.
We've created a lot of tech in the back end, which allows us to recommend the right solution for that customer. And there we're able to do that because of multiple things we've invested in, right? Understanding the persona of the customer, really being able to predict what's the right fit for them as a solution, whether it's on the savings side or the right credit product. And Chi-Score is another massive investment we've made, which allows us to really give a very strong artificial intelligence, machine learning based automated predictive model, right, that can be used for underwriting these customers. And we then there move away from the challenges they have from the lack of information that a credit score provides today. So just to maybe take an example, right, of a customer, we have a woman, Kavita, who is one of our oldest customers. She lives on the outskirts of Allahabad. She runs a small shop, to sell grocery items like wafers, water bottles, aerated drinks. And she uses a smartphone, right, for coordinating with her distributors today. And she doesn't really use her phone for anything else in terms of financial transactions. She uses WhatsApp, YouTube. Now, she's taken several loans from microfinance institutions in her area. And so Kavita's first discovery about Kaleidofin was actually through the microfinance institution that she already works with and has taken a loan with. And that's, what we've adopted, right? We've adopted what we call a tech and touch model, where the first, we tie up with microfinance institutions, small banks, cooperative banks who have an existing relationship with our target customers.
Definitely solves the trust problem, because the customer would trust a place they have taken a loan from in the past or a bank where they have an account. But where does artificial intelligence and machine learning come in then? Everything is done by the financial institution and their agents, right?
But that is what makes the tech and touch model unique. The agent uses the technology of Kaleidofin to onboard the customer. This is especially significant because 97% of Kaleidofin's customers are women who are affected by the digital divide. Fewer women access smartphones, and many would need the assistance of a family member or an agent to operate a bank account. Listen to Kalai Selvi Krishnamurthy, who is a tailor hailing from Dharmapuri in Tamil Nadu. She lives with her husband, who is a daily laborer, and has 3 daughters in school. She was able to start her business with the help of an agent.
So what Sir said was, if you put some money, like 500 rupees or so aside, as savings every month, you can use it for your daughter's education and yourself. We liked what he said, so we opened an account. Using the savings, I am planning to start a small tuition.
But you must be wondering, how did Kaleidofin decide that she was worthy of a loan? I will let Natasha explain that.
Here is where I would say, what we try to define is how do we build up the digital confidence for her as a customer so that she can actually transact confidently with us, whether it's through voice-based channels or whether it is using that same smartphone that she has started using for other needs, but how do we bring her into the fold of using it for her financial needs as well? And here we try to take it in a bunch of different ways, right? We really invest in the right communication with the customer. I mentioned the goal-oriented approach. We continue that train of thought throughout the customer's interaction with the products, right? You started with one goal, you have other goals that can be layered in. How do you achieve those goals? We bundle the services, right? So we give it as a cash, which is how the customers see us, is a bundling of savings or credit as well as insurance. And so the customer doesn't have to cognitively think about multiple things, right? It's offered as a seamless one-stop process. So as long as they trust the brand and they've grown to respect the brand and they value the flexibility and the products it provides, it allows her to opt into other solutions. So she might have started with savings, but she might opt into a credit offering. She might have started with a loan that comes onto our platform, but she may then choose to additionally start to save.
I now understand how trust and tech are being solved for. And I also see how the Chi score could be built up. The customer's past savings and credit history would become critical inputs into building a credit score. This would also account for seasonality in income and economic shocks, which could make traditional providers wary of providing a line of credit. Here's Natasha shedding more light on this.
While these customers don't have great credit scores, there's actually a ton of information available in their credit bureau history about, say, past loans, especially if they've taken them through microfinance institutions, which are some of the only institutions that allow access to credit for this customer segment today. So the customer may access it as a group loan. She may not have had a credit score that would have allowed her access to any other bank loan. She doesn't today as well. But that group loan and that information builds history over time. And her performance, her behavior on those loans adds a lot of information. And so what we've done is we've gone back to the basics. We've really looked at the kind of data sources that give us visibility into her past credit behavior, as well as other past behavioral information, right? Wherever we have access to it, loan application information, demographic information can give a lot of interesting indicators. And there are other interesting indicators also, like, her telecom usage, other kinds of alternate data sources that add a lot of value here. So I would say it is a mix, and we have actually, I would say, have access to data of over 25 million customers right now. And so the models we've built are actually on her hugely value adding and a very large volume of data. We also, go into other nuances, right? Like, what is the average disposable income in a particular area? What are the kinds of environmental risks, natural calamities that certain customers might be exposed to? And those are the kinds of additional data science value adds that allow us to predict different kind of risk, right? More environmental or sort of geographical risk as well.
It's for reasons like these that Teresa Matthew chose to invest in Kaleidofin.
Yes, so Kaleidofin is a platform that took this, full service approach. Their thesis was that the informal segment within the NHB are the most underserved when it comes to financial services, and ranging from savings to insurance to credit. And they actually entered with a savings first approach. And like you rightly said, all of this is very complex for the NHB, and particularly the informal segment, which is largely today served by the microfinance institutions as far as credit is concerned. So they went with a life goals led approach, where, as you would agree, mutual funds, etc., are way too complex. So, they basically developed these 2-3 products, which are life goals based. So, which is, for children's education, for home renovation, etc., and which makes it much more relatable for the customer and gets them into a regular savings habit. So that is how the savings side was addressed. From a credit standpoint, historically, this informal segment, which is probably the bottom end of the NHB, has been served by microfinance institutions where credit has not been underwritten individually. It has not been underwritten using data, but it works with the joint liability group model, right? Where it's been proven that because people are taking joint liability for the entire group, the collection efficiencies have been as high as 99%.
It's kind of amazing how such a complex problem broken down into its parts and solved thoughtfully at each step can bring about a real change.
It indeed is. And it's the simple act of introducing a smartphone in a woman's life which enables this entire chain of events. Thank you for tuning into Smartphone Nation. I'm Utsav.
And I am Nivedita. This was Smartphone Nation. Tune in next week for another story on how the next 500 million are shaping their future online. If you like our show, please subscribe to the Smartphone Nation YouTube channel. Don't forget to rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Share this episode with your friends as it helps the show reach more people.
You can listen and subscribe to Smartphone Nation on the IVM Podcasts app or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is also available in Hindi and Tamil. A special thanks to Omidyar Network India for making this season possible. To know how ONI is partnering with bold and purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are working to improve the lives of India's next $500 million, visit omidyarnetwork.in. Tell us what you think of the show. You can find our hosts on Twitter and Instagram. Utsav can be found on the Instagram ID at YWTravel42. You can reach out to Nivedita on Instagram at niv.prakasam. You can follow IVM on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the ID at IVM Podcasts.
IVM